Crested geckos. There are a lot of morphs for these guys, and I mean quite a lot. This series, we're going to be breaking down each and every one of those morphs, one video at a time. Today's topic is going to be none other than the Dalmatian Crested Gecko, a gene that you would think of, well, if it has spots then it's a Dalmatian, but you would be wrong. In a lot of traits that are in crested geckos, there are even a lot of traits in something as simple as a Dalmatian crested gecko. Stick around while we talk about all the different kinds of Dals there are, and you get to see cute geckos like Cookie right here. Let's get into it. Before we get into all the different Dalmatian crested geckos, we gotta kind of define what a Dalmatian is, because pretty much everything we talk about going past this is just gonna be some sort of difference between what the basic Dal gene is. Dalmatian crested gecko is, well, it's pretty obvious. It's going to be a crested gecko with black spots on it, polka dots. Much like the Dalmatian dog, we have that in crested gecko form. There does seem to be some controversy is you can label an animal that is Dalmatian, or if you label it just with Dal spots, depending on the number of spots. In the crested gecko community, especially when we're talking about the Dalmatian gene, there is a lot of technicalities, I will say. I find it a little bit silly. There'll be people that say if it has X to X amount of spots, then it just has Dal spots. If it has X to X, then it is a Dalmatian. Then if it has X to X, it is this to this to this. I find that a little bit silly, but that is usually what we've been going off of for the longest amount of time. So now we know the basics. Dalmatian means a gecko with spots on it. Doesn't matter what the pattern is, doesn't matter what's going on underneath, red, purple, orange, blue, rainbow color. If it's got the black spots on it, it has the Dalmatian gene in it. Now, even though the Dalmatian gene can appear on any base or pattern mutation you have on crested geckos, there are some that are sought after and some that are not. Usually when it comes to the crested gecko market, we like it on things like this. This is gonna be on like your buckskins, your olives, your patternless, your bicolors, anything like that. Anything with pretty much a clean base where the Dal spots really get to pop out of. When it comes to putting that onto certain patterns, most of the things once you get in like Harlequin onward, anything where the trait is supposed to be the emphasis of it, so you know, like a nice orange dorsal with the side patterning going up, it kind of gets diminished by the spots in most people's eyes. I don't really care too much about it, but if it does get a little bit crazy, then in my opinion, it does kind of muddy the pattern, make it a little bit of a less nice looking gecko. So over here, it's gonna be stuff like this. Cookie right here is what they call a chocolate. It's a patternless color that's just a darker color. You can see she fires up pretty dark, kind of like a chocolate bar, hence the name chocolate. Pattern, and the only pattern I really like putting in Dalmatians is going to be the tiger. I love putting in tigers and brindles, I guess. I just like the messy pattern, the breakage on the sides, and I got all these Dal spots. I think it makes a cool looking gecko. People disagree with me. Some people want tigers to be pure. People just think Dal spots as the plague these days because you really can find them in anywhere. But when it comes to tigers, I love that. I've been doing that project for about six years or so, and now I have some non-tiger Dalmatians as I've added over the years as well. That we know the basics of what a Dalmatian crested gecko is, let's get into the first upgrade of what it is, and that is going to be a super Dalmatian. Back then when I first started breeding crested geckos, super Dalmatian was defined into two separate categories. A Dalmatian was one that had 0 to 50 spots, and then a super Dalmatian was something that like was above 50 or close to 100 spots. The number kept changing, and honestly, I find it to be a little bit silly. Animal has 100 spots, and Cookie is my best gecko, which is why she's holding it. Most of my geckos don't just chill like this. It would be so difficult to try to count all of these spots to get 100 and just to try. I don't know. I feel that that's a little silly. A super Dalmatian is a Dalmatian that has a lot of spots, and I mean a lot of spots. In my opinion, I eyeball it. That is just the way I do things here. You can look at this crested gecko right here, and then this crested gecko right here, and you can safely say which one is a Dalmatian versus which one is a super Dalmatian. Pretty much gonna be the gist of it. A Dalmatian is a gecko with spots, and then a super Dalmatian is a gecko with more spots than a Dalmatian. Real quick before we get on with this video, I just want to take a few seconds to talk about the Patreon page. Now over on the Dakota Blue Exotics Patreon page, we have some awesome behind the scenes bonus content that I don't show anywhere else, and some great perks as well. One of those perks I'm very excited to talk about. I actually took a lot of inspiration from Flawless Crested Geckos. That membership is going to be the DBCB credit program. I absolutely love the credit program. I'll kind of explain how it works. Pretty much for each dollar that is pledged for that membership goes into a credit account that's personalized for you. For instance, let's say you've been with the credit program for 10 months, which means you have $400 in credit. So if there's an animal you want from me that is $400, you can actually use that credit instead of money, which means you basically get the animal for free at that point. I mean, I guess if we're like using girl math, right? Not to mention there are some fantastic perks on top of that credit program already. That's going to be some discounted percentages off the animals, flat rate shipping. We have some great educational chat boards where we discuss how to build your own gecko reptile room, how to build a gecko breeding business, and how to build a reptile social media. If you want to grow yours, how to start one out the right way, everything that goes into that. Whether you guys are looking to up your knowledge about geckos, get some awesome behind the scenes bonus content, be part of an awesome tight niche community, or maybe you guys just want to see the animals that I have for sale first before anyone else gets to see them, then Patreon's going to be the perfect place for you. That's something that might interest you guys. I got the link right down in the description. That'll take you right to our Patreon page where you can sign up. Thank you guys so much. All right, let's get back into the video. Getting into the next one, we are going to be talking about one that Cookie actually is. Well, she is a super Dalmatian, as I would call it, but she is also what people call Inkblot. About the other traits or mutations, whatever you want to call them, Dalmatians, two things are going to happen. You're either going to get more spots, a different color spot, or bigger spots. Those are the three indicators on what changes this to that to this. And an Inkblot is going to be one that changes the size of the spots. While a regular Dalmatian spot is one of what I like to call a little pinpoint. You know, you prick the pin on the paper and you get a little bit of a spot. That is a Dal spot. When we're talking about an Inkblot, well, I guess back in the olden days they had the quivers, the feather thing, and then you blot it, and then it gets everywhere, and it's a big mess. That's what Cookie does right here. Cookie is what you would call an Inkblot Crested Gecko. Because her Dalmatian spots are not small, they are pretty big, just saying Inkblot. There are three different sizes. The next size we will be going into, the Inkblot is going to be the medium size. So while a Dal spot is going to be these small little pricker dots, the Inkblot is going to be one of a larger ink blotting. Another good way, I mean, you just gotta eyeball it. Use the honor system, boys and girls. This, definitely an Inkblot. Your little pepper flaked Dalmatian, because one spot is slightly bigger than the other, not an Inkblot. Eyeball it. If this looks like a big spot to you, then it probably is an Inkblot. Now, of course, I mentioned there is a third option. We've got the regular Dal, we got the Inkblot, and then we're getting the third one, which we are going to do right now, and that is going to be the oil spill spot. Oil spill spot is actually two things, which makes it the perfect segue going from size to color. And that's the fact is, it is a big spot. However, it is not your average black spot that you would see like right here. An oil spill is going to be a big spot that resembles a grayish to greenish lighter hue. So it's not gonna be a dark black spot that you usually see. There's gonna be some color difference. Difficult to explain. This is why we have beautiful B-roll, and if I actually don't have oil spill in my collection, we have beautiful JPEGs to show you guys what I'm actually talking about. For it to be considered an oil spill, it does have to be a big spot, and it does have to be that weird hue. Not a black spot, but again, that like grayish greenish thing. I'm like 90% sure I have so many Dalmatian Crested Geckos, one of them has to have this thing, I just know it. But of course, this leads us into a great segue from talking about the size of the spots. Of course, now we know what a Dalmatian is, what a super Dalmatian is, what an Inkblot is, and now we're getting to the color changes with the oil spill. But boys and girls, there are still so many different colors things to talk about, which is gonna bring us to our next one, the red spots. Spots in Crested Geckos is a pretty easy thing to figure out because, well, it is a Crested Gecko with red spots. Be confused with Confetti, that has a little bit more things to go. We'll get into that next, but the red spot is a Crested Gecko that is a Dalmatian that carries black and red spots, or all red spots. It's something we're trying to do over here as well. We have plenty of Crested Geckos that have a multitude of different colored spots with the reds and the blacks. We have some that are 90% red with just 10% blacks, and hopefully within the next couple of generations, we will be producing all red spotted Crested Geckos. That would be something really awesome to see. Only time will tell if we can get it done, but you will now know that a Dalmatian can have red spots, and it is called red spot. On to the next one, let's bring that red spot one step further, and that is going to be the confetti line Crested Gecko, or the confetti Crested Gecko. From what I've been told for the longest time, and this might have been changing over the years, I guess I'm not keeping up with my Crested Gecko stuff, but from what I heard for the longest time, a Crested Gecko or a confetti line Dalmatian Crested Gecko is one that is going to have evenly placent black and red spots. You cannot have a super Dalmatian with a bunch of black spots and then a couple red spots and call it a confetti. A confetti Crested Gecko is one that has an evenly sprinkled amount of red and black. Apparently now a confetti is listed as 3, or so I've been reading. The third spot can either be the oil spilling, so the green, there's more of like these yellowish spots, orange spots as we go further and further and try and mix different colors together. But go with what you will, take that with a grain of salt. I've always understood confetti as it has to, well, look like this picture right here. Look at this B-roll of this animal. This is what I would consider a confetti. Maybe the Crested Gecko experts got me wrong and I no longer qualify to be in the confetti club. Boy oh boy, would that just break my heart if that was the case. Getting on to the final Dalmatian trait of this list, one that I find is really cool because I personally did not know about it when it popped up in my collection, and I do a ton of research and ask a bunch of people to finally get a straight answer before someone knew what it was, so it does seem to be, I don't want to say rare because that might not be the case, but definitely more uncommon and one that not a lot of people know about, and that is going to be the bullseye Dalmatian Crested Gecko. Bullseye is going to be a really cool thing. It is going to be a red spot that is then outlined by a black spot, hence the bullseye thing. Well, something I found was really cool. I don't know if this happens in other people's collections. I've only hatched out one Crested Gecko that has done this for me. It wasn't something I was like sorting after or wanted to get. It came out as black spots. They were like these nice giant ink blotting spots on there. I called it Mickey Mouse because I didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, and the spots looked like Mickey Mouse. However, as that gecko aged more and more, became female, I noticed that the shade of that color started changing ever so slightly through the time I had it, until one day, well, it turned into mostly a red spot with this outline of black. It was absolutely incredible. I thought I made a world's first. Eventually, someone popped my little world's first ego bubble and told me, no, it's a bullseye, it's a thing. It's just not many people are working on it. A really cool thing, you really don't see it that much. Maybe it's just people don't really care about it, or maybe it's just more people are doing it. It's definitely something I'm doing over here. We do have some eggs in that girl. She was finally breeder ready, so I can't wait to hatch out some babies and grow them out and see if that bullseye trait can be carried on from the mother to the offspring. There you got it, boys and girls. Now you are absolute experts on every Dalmatian thingy that's going on, at least until this day and age. Until this date and age when this video is posted. I know there's new Dalmatian stuff being made, however, I don't know much about it. It's still being worked on, so I did not decide to put it into this video as of yet. Maybe we'll do an update one day. This week we'll be going over the pattern Crested Geckos, if that's something you want to check out, or maybe check out the other genes that we have made in this series. You can check out this playlist right here that talks about all the big morph guide, or you can check out a Crested Gecko video right here. I'm not sure which one I'll put, but I bet it has to do with these guys. As always, thank you so much for taking the time of your day to follow us over here at Dakota Blue Exotics. I will see you guys next time, but until then, goodbye.